Nile is the largest river in the world. It has brought more than 500,000,000 people together. It has been a source of unity, but also a cause of conflict between some countries. Now, Nile brings together 10 countries. It touches about 10 to 11 countries. These are Burundi, Democratic Republic of Congo, Egypt, Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, South Sudan, Tanzania, and Uganda. Eritrea has joined lately as an observer. Now, this family has come together as a Nile Basin family, and they have formed this initiative and have been trying for more than a decade to reach to a cooperation framework agreement, what's called as CFA and its acronym name. Although it took more than a decade or more than 15 years to be exact, recently a landmark has been achieved as this multinational Nile family have come together to sign this agreement. But not all. Egypt has been opposing and still did not sign this agreement, but the majority have signed it. And then they are ready. This from now on, it will be forced to be implemented. Just to say about a little with regards to this CFA, the Cooperation Framework Agreement. Now, the Nile Basin Cooperation Framework Agreement, it's also known as the Entebbe Agreement. It has entered into force, to be exact, on October 13 this month, 2024. The agreement aims to ensure equitable use of the Nile and a shared responsibility in the protection of the resource and how to use Nile. Now, the agreement also establishes the Nile River Basin Commission to manage the resource. The Nile Basin Initiative itself is established in 1999. As I told you before, it has 10 members, and Eritrea joined as an observer, making it as 11th member. Now, 6 of the members out of these 10 have signed on October 13 this cooperation framework agreement. These are Ethiopia, Rwanda, Tanzania, Uganda, South Sudan, and Burundi. The latter two, Burundi and South Sudan, have ratified it recently, and as soon as they have ratified it, then these 6 members have voted or come an agreement to enforce this agreement, which will mean which will help the members who have signed it to use the water in a way, in an equitable share, and to protect the resource as well, considering climate change and other threats to the river. Now, Egypt and Sudan, notably, have rejected the agreement on equitable use of the river. In a joint statement that these two countries they have released, they are also known as the downstream countries. The upper streams are all the rest, the 8 countries. As it comes, the water comes from the eastern part of the continent, meaning from the highlands of Ethiopia to the downstream, to the north of the continent, to Egypt and Sudan. Now, they released these two opposing countries a statement together. They said the agreement that the 6 states signed is not binding. The 2 countries argue that unestablished international law is violated and have been arguing to make colonial era agreement to which many of the Nile Basin countries are not signatory, a point of reference in sharing water from the Nile River. Now, Egypt and Sudan has got this a colonial era agreement that gives them full access and power over the Nile, which is given by the UK, which was a colonizer of these two countries at that time. And it gives Egypt and Sudan dominance over the water. And that's what now Egypt wants to maintain, in which the rest of the countries, Ethiopia, okay, was not colonized, but did not sign and has opposed it at that time. But the rest of the countries have been colonized and they didn't even have a vote, a say in it. It's just an agreement prepared by this colonizer because Britain wanted to get its cotton from Egypt so that Britain did not, or UK did not that want to be interrupted. So it gives this dominance to Egypt so that the Egypt farmers continuously supply Britain with the cotton and other things as well. Now, just mind you again how the colonial era things have come to trouble or become as a source of a conflict in the continent. Now, I continue with this cooperation framework agreement. Now, in quotation, this is what they said from their statement, Egypt and Sudan. They reaffirmed that the CFA, the Cooperation Framework Agreement, is not binding on either nation, not merely due to their non-accession to the agreement, but also because it contravenes established principle of customary and conventional international law. What's conventional international law? That the agreement, that the colonial era agreement that they have signed, it's really laughable. Okay, let me just continue. Furthermore, it says in their statement, Egypt and Sudan affirm that the six-state commission established under the incomplete CFA draft cannot under any circumstances be regarded as representative of the Nile Basin as a whole. From 10 members, you have 6 members ratified it, and it's a majority vote. Okay, 2 have opposed it, and Kenya and Democratic Republic of Congo have not ratified. Kenya has ratified it, but it has yet to approve it. But it did it a year ago. But I don't know. I mean, sometimes it's like political strategy. I'm just assuming perhaps Kenya, because they have Raila Odinga now to compete for the AU chairmanship position, and maybe they want to gather a support. So if they lose Egypt, then maybe they might lose the whole of North Africa. I don't know. It can't be. It's just my analysis, but there must be. If they have been a signatory, if they accept it, just ratifying is a matter of time. So I really, for whatever reason, I think Kenya, maybe it's a political strategy why they haven't done it. Democratic Republic of Congo. So anyway, it's 2 of them. So you have the majority. So why it should not be enforced? Look at them with their colonial era way of viewing things. Now, the ratification of the Nile Basin Cooperation Framework Agreement came in the wake of also what you have to notice is the agreement signed between Eritrea, Egypt, and Somalia, which they have had a summit recently in the capital Asmara. Now, this is a sign, it's something that is viewed as an access or an alliance that is as opposed to Ethiopia, ganging against Ethiopia. This is the agreement that they have achieved, and one has to really pay attention about, the circumstances, what are happening here, what's happening here. Okay, this is just recently that happened in Asmara. Okay. Wow. Now they're emerging. Now the alliance, as also the BBC called it, there are emerging reports that Egypt attempted to include Djibouti in this summit, but Djibouti declined. So Egypt, Eritrea, and Somalia now they have alliance, and this comes also in the wake of when Ethiopia signed earlier with Somaliland to have a sea access. It was signed a memorandum of understanding between Ethiopia and Somaliland, and Somalia has condemned it and said it will go out, to war against Ethiopia. And ever since, Egypt and Somalia have been, hand to hand against Ethiopia. And Eritrea also apparently has joined now this alliance. Now, the ratification of the Nile Basin Cooperation Framework Agreement could prove to be a hurdle for Egypt, a Nile Basin country which has recently been manipulating the federal government in Mogadishu, in Somalia, with whom the former they have also signed a military pact, and Egypt have been on a daily basis offloading military weapons and militaries as well in Somalia. Somalia also signed that military pact with Turkey, and the whole naval base is run by Turkey. So Somalia voluntarily actually has become this seat of international forces that have animosity in the neighboring country. It's something that's unacceptable. Now, Ethiopia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs published a brief update on its social media page, hailing the agreement as a remarkable achievement. Ethiopia said the principles enshrined in the Cooperation Framework Agreement fix historic wrongs, ascertain equitable use, and foster mutual understanding and shared responsibility. Quote close. Now, unlike Egypt, Ethiopia expressed confidence that the entry into force this agreement, this cooperation framework agreement, will yield significant benefits for the basin states, for the Nile family, and contribute to a more prosperous and sustainable future. The Prime Minister also has called for those, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, called for those who do not sign to join the family and share this equitable, fair way of using Nile. Also, there was a statement from the Nile Basin Initiative current chairperson, who said that the chairperson he is from let me see, he's from the chairperson, he's from, I think, if I'm not mistaken, from South Sudan or Uganda. But he said an interesting statement. Look, the chairman of the Nile Council of Ministers, NileCom, the top decision-making organ of the Nile Basin Initiative, who is also Uganda's Minister of Water, yes, Honorable Sam Cheptoris, reveals that first of all, he said he welcomed Burundi and South Sudan for ratifying it, and he said, I wish, therefore, regarding to the climate change. I'm just trying to find his statement with regards to climate change. Look, he said the region is experiencing the worst form of climate crisis, with Kenya, Burundi, and Ethiopia and South Sudan hugely affected by torrential rains, landslides, and devastating flooding, which call for joint frontline action to combat and mitigate the risks. Now, Egypt calls it that Nile is an existential matter for it, but also this chairperson of the Nile Basin Initiative, calls it now signing this agreement, cooperation framework agreement, is an existential matter for the Nile Basin family, as climate change is threatening all these Nile Basin members. And already these countries are experiencing, Ethiopia, Uganda, South Sudan, and Kenya, with all the rains, the floodings, the landslides. So it is a matter of, it's an equally as an existential matter for the Nile Basin family. So to sign is really something that is mandatory, to sign the cooperation framework agreement of the Nile Basin. So now, finally, I want to leave you with a question that now, what does it mean? Basically, this cooperation framework, they say that whenever now where there is an investment or something, that this body will make sure, I think the commission that's established, that this has to, the water has to be used in an equitable way, because by 2050, they think that the analysis is that from climate change point of view, there will be a scarcity of water. What do you think of the establishment of this commission and the opposition by the two countries, Egypt and Sudan? And also, they are still attempting to maintain the colonial era agreements that they have been given from their previous colonizer. Let us know in the comment section what is your view on this. Thanks very much again for tuning in. Yeah, I will see you on the next one. And until then, it's a bye-bye from me. But please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, share the video with others, and give it a like. Please help us through our PayPal account. You can find it in the description section. Thanks again, and bye-bye. I'll see you on the next one.